Hello there, welcome back. This is lesson 2 in our ionic metallic bonding unit. And today's lesson is called Intro to Ionic Bonds. In the last video, we covered how to draw Lewis dot diagrams for atoms and ions, both the positive ones and the negative ones. And in this video, we're going to talk about kind of what ionic bonds are, what they're made of, and how they are formed. So let's start simple. What is a chemical bond? So a chemical bond is the joining of two or more atoms. So you might be thinking, well, why are we spending a really long time and breaking this up into two units if, the definition is so simple? And it is, but there's so much that goes on within a bond that we have to talk about. So again, why do chemical bonds occur? The simple answer is the octet rule. And if we're going to elaborate on that, remember every element wants a full valence shell. So just like the noble gases, they don't bond with anything because their valence shell is full. And so for all of them except for helium, they have 8 valence electrons. So all the other elements want to be like the mighty, mighty noble gases. The metals will lose their valence electrons to get that 8, to get that full shell, and then the nonmetals will gain those electrons to get their full shell. So remember, our metals lose electrons and become positive. Our nonmetals gain electrons and become negative. So what is an ionic bond? And the ionic bond is formed between a metal and a nonmetal. So that is kind of one of the most important things. So metal plus nonmetal is your ionic bond. And there are different combinations of other things, and those are the different types of bonds, which we will get to. And so what happens in the ionic bond is that you have a transfer of electrons. So this right here is super, super, super important. Ionic bonds between metal and a nonmetal, it's the transfer of electrons. So what's basically going on, and we're going to spend a little more time on this later on in the video, is that electron that is lost by the metal is gained by that nonmetal. So again, that metal becomes positive, nonmetal becomes negative, and positive and negative attract. So that positive thing, that negative thing, those opposite charges attract. And boom, you got yourself an ionic bond. Okay, so let's kind of go through this in a story. So it's a nice sunny day, and sodium is out there living its best life with one valence electron. And chlorine comes with 7 valence electrons. So remember, every element wants their full valence shell. So chlorine is walking over and goes to sodium. Remember, chlorine is highly electronegative, which means it really, really wants an electron. Remember, chlorine has one empty spot. It really, really wants that electron. So chlorine goes all the way over to sodium and literally bullies sodium into taking its electron. Chlorine's like, hey, sodium, give me your electron. I want it. I need it more than you do. And sodium is like, oh, okay, here you go. So, sodium with its 1 valence electron and chlorine with its 7. Remember, chlorine has this empty spot. The electron that belongs to sodium is lost and is gained by chlorine. So now, sodium, because it lost 1 electron, it's positive 1. And now chlorine, because it gained 1, now it has 8, is minus 1. Again, you draw those brackets. And so that is how ionic bonds works. You get your NaCl. Again, the highly electronegative nonmetal takes and steals the electron from the metal. Metal becomes positive, chlorine becomes negative. You could think of it like, a bully on a playground. Not the nicest example, but chlorine is taking sodium's thing, and now chlorine is running around saying, "Ha, you can't get me, you can't get me, you can't get me." And sodium is chasing on right after it. So they are now connected. So basically, an electron goes from the metal to the non-metal. So if we look at this again in another picture, sodium has one valent electron. It's not happy. It's not stable. Neither is chlorine when it has its 7 valent electrons. So sodium will give its electron to chlorine. So sodium becomes positive, again, because it lost an electron. Chlorine becomes negative because it gained an electron. Now both ions, they're ions now because they're charged, are happy. So to kind of see this in more detail, one last picture to show this. So again, sodium has that one valence shell. So here is sodium's valence shell, that blue shell. And when it loses it and gives it to chlorine, so when sodium gives its thing to chlorine, you now have that sodium ion. So this whole shell, let me get a different color. This whole shell disappears because there's nothing in it. So the shell that came before it is all the way full, and that's what makes sodium happy. Now chlorine is happy because that one empty spot now has an electron in it. And so chlorine has a full valence shell, sodium has a full valence shell. Sodium is positive, chlorine is negative. Opposites attract. Boom, you got yourself your ionic bond. So basically, an ionic bond is a metal plus a nonmetal, and you have a transfer of electrons. So the electron goes from the metal to the nonmetal. And so we're going to spend time in the next video going over how to name these different things and how these formulas are formed and why certain compounds have different numbers of each thing. So stay tuned for that. See you soon. Bye.